Welcome back to the UNF Leadership Podcast. After a quick summer break, we're excited to return to weekly conversations with some of our favorite leaders. Today's guest is a special one. My teammate, motivational speaker, and longtime college and high school basketball coach, Anthony Bonelli. Anthony and I first met at the Bruce Beck and Iron Eagle Sportscasting Camp in 2010. Since then, he's gone on to coach and consult basketball at Drew University, Rutgers University, and several boys and girls high school programs, including winning multiple division and county championships. Anthony has battled cerebral palsy his entire life, but it's never stopped him from chasing his dreams and making an impact on our world. Even after we pressed stop record on this episode, Anthony still had lessons he wanted to share, including the importance of discovering and embracing each team's unique identity and coaching them based off of that ethos. That's just who AB is. This is Voices of Leadership, Anthony Bonelli. Truly an honor, a privilege, a full circle moment to be joined by my teammate, my good friend, Anthony Bonelli, who we first met at Sports Broadcasting Camp all the way back 15 years ago, 16 years ago. We're not going to date ourselves, Anthony is a 12-year veteran basketball coach at the collegiate and high school level, as well as a former consultant for Rutgers University's men's basketball team, a motivational speaker, an author, a writer. He does everything, folks, and his story is one that I know will empower and inspire so many of you. And I know he's excited to share his lessons in leadership over the past 12 years as an assistant coach throughout the college and high school ranks with you guys. Let's start with this, Ant. Let's go big picture. I promised you when you asked me what questions I was going to ask. I always start these podcasts with one simple question, and then everything kind of maps itself out from there. Where does your leadership journey specifically, begin?
Well, first of all, I'm honored to be a member of this group that was previously interviewed on this podcast, and thank you for having me. I think my leadership journey starts with a little game called Simon Says. And then we got into coaching in 2013. And I'm going to say that my leadership style was the same for about 10 years. And then it was the past 2 years, it kind of changed a little bit. Because life happens. And it kind of puts things in perspective. So the past 2 years, the first 10 years, I was all about winning. No ifs, ands, or buts. Yes, I was still having fun, but then life happened, and then I realized it's just a game. And these are 16, 17-year-old kids, and they're gonna miss shots sometimes. But you have to be able to help them develop, not only as players, but as people. And I know that's cliche, but it's the absolute truth.
That might be one of the strongest opening comments we've had in the 6-episode history of the UNF Leadership Podcast, Ant. I do want to fill in the blanks for those who may be unfamiliar with Simon Says. Anthony is alluding to truly the game of Simon Says that we played at Sports Broadcasting Camp back in the day with our advanced camp director, Mike Quick. Yes, before we ever picked up a camera or spoke on camera, we were instructed to play a game of Simon Says. Let's start there, Ant, because I do want to get to that big watershed moment in your leadership journey here momentarily. But let's start with quick. Let's start with your initial career aspirations in sports media and how that set you on the path for a decade plus year in coaching.
Well, first of all, I needed Bruce Beck of NBC4, Iron Eagle of CBS Sports, and everywhere else, and Mike Quick, and Dave Cerrone, and all the people at Sports Broadcasting Camp, just so I don't leave anybody out, to believe in me that I had the capability to do this. So that's where it started for me. I had to show our kids that I coach, that I believe in them, and I have their back no matter what.
And I think that's a great point because I echo that sentiment, given that truly, and thank you for opening my eyes to that. You could argue that my leadership journey, among other influences, Ant, really does start with Bruce, Ian, and Mike and what they did for us because they truly were among the first people I know who took me aside and said, I believe in you. Is there a moment for you where, with one of those three or all three of them, or of course, Dave Cerroti, Dave Popkin, we want to give them some love as well because I know Cerroti will be listening to this episode. Was there a moment where you felt that? Because I know for me, it was the final day of beginner camp. Bruce took my parents aside. Ian took my parents aside, and they said, she's going to have to go to Ithaca or Syracuse. She's going to have to move to Bangor, Maine or Billings, Montana, but she can do this. Like this is very much a reality.
In 2003, we had to read in front of a teleprompter at Rutgers State University. And at the time, I was deathly afraid of the camera, of that little red light, as we called it. And they went 5, 4, 3, 2, and I froze for about 45 seconds. And Bruce Beck came over, put his hand on my shoulder, and said, do you want to do this? And I said, yes, just give me a minute. And slowly, I started to read from the telephone. Ever since that moment, I was never afraid of speaking of other people, never afraid of talking, obviously, and that's where it all started for me.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. That's an incredible, incredible moment that I know, we love to jab our friend Bubba sometimes, but to know that he was that moment has lived on now 20 some odd years later.
Yeah.
It really is an indelible mark. So now for those who may be unfamiliar, so you initially, Ant, wanted to get into sports broadcasting. At what point does coaching enter your radar?
Uh, well, I was always keeping the book as a child, baseball, basketball, but it really started under Jimmy Carr, former director of basketball operations at Rutgers, assistant coach at Rhode Island, now working at the postgraduate coach at the IMG Academy at Rutgers University in 2010.
Yeah.
They taught me how to scout. They said I was allowed to, I was either doing, I always used to say I was either doing homework or at the rack. Or for those who don't know, that was the Rutgers Athletic Director Center.
We don't call it Jersey Mike's Arena. We call it the Rack. Well said, Ann.
Yeah, so they believed in me first. And then obviously I went on to Drew. And the rest is history, as I say.
And as you reminded me, Ann, I was actually at your apartment when you were graduating from Rutgers when you got that call from Drew University for your first assistant coaching job at the college level. Yeah. I completely forgot that was the first conversation you had for your first collegiate job.
Yeah. Thank you, Jack Beers, or as we have technically known as Bud.
Shout out to Bud. Shout out to Jack Beers, Drew University legend. And so that indeed was Ant's first college assistant job. That was back in 2013. He spent 5 years as a high school girls basketball assistant at Hunterdon Central Regional, Warren Hills Regional High School. And then, of course, that was 1 year at Central, right? And then that was when you won the Hunterdon Warren Sussex County Championship. Yeah. And that was all on the girls' side.
Also, actually won 2 of 101 Sussex, one at Central and one at Warren Hills. After we won at Central in 2018, went on to Rutgers, took a step back on the game a little bit, learned a little bit more about the game a little bit. I mean, I was so fortunate. I got to sit back and watch how Steve Peichel, Brandon Knight, Carl Hobbs, Steve Hayes, they all had different ways of preparing a team for a scout, for a game, because they each had their own scout. So I was like a sponge learning not only learning our terminology, but learning how they saw the game.
And I
And
think
that kind of each person you meet, even go back up, I even go Bruce back, Mike Quick, each person you meet kind of frames your leadership journey.
And I think that what's so critical about that point, Ant, is that, and I had this conversation with someone the other day, you have gone out of your way at different junctures of your coaching career, of your motivational speaking, writing career to say, okay, I'm not the leader right now. I need to be a follower. I need to be a sponge. And I think too often we get in this practice of, well, I need to always be in a leadership role, when in reality, some of the best leaders are also some of the best followers. It just depends on what hat they've put on that day.
It's funny you say that because this past year, this past year, each, each member of our staff had their role. I had the Big Scout, and the other coaches had the in-game adjustment part of it. Not that I didn't have input, but I kind of want them to handle it. Because, I'll be honest, I can't draw up a play in 5 seconds like they can.
Mm-hmm.
I have to see it before they go. I have to see it before I can say, oh, now I understand. And I have to see it at full speed. It can't be like walking through it. So I kind of leaned on them for that. So you gotta know your role based on who you are, and you can't change who you are. And I know John Gordon talked about this a long time, and Joshua Metcalf said, focus on what's important to you. If tucking your shirt in is important to you, then that's what you focus on. What we focused on as a staff was you, you made the team. And now we have to have the conversation of you represent the front of the jersey, not the back of the jersey. And as soon as my boss said that, who I've known for 15, 16 years, you step up your game a little bit because you realize you have to feed off of that and echo the message of your head coach.
Right. What I really like about that, Ant, is something that I don't know if John and I hit on this in episode 2, which anyone who hasn't listened yet to our conversation with John Gordon, I encourage you to go do so. Because part of why we recorded that episode was, number one, John is a great friend and supporter of the Taylor Leadership Institute. But number two, John is also a great friend and supporter of the Jacksonville Jaguars, among other NFL outlets and other NFL teams. And so one thing that Jaguars general manager James Gladstone always talks about is you find someone's superpower and you lean into that. And for you and your leadership journey, exactly what you just outlined with this most recent season, your return to the high school ranks, where, okay, I may not be able to quickly draw up a play because of physical limitations and because that's not my superpower. But my superpower for you, in your case, Ant, is that you've spent how many years on the Rutgers staff coming up with scouts, studying film for the men's basketball team in the Big Ten. And so you can now apply that and bring that superpower to the high school ranks and to those young girls. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what being a team is leaning into each person's power and bringing all the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah, well, it was actually the boys, but Yeah.
Oh, right. I forgot you coach boys this year. I forgot. Well,
Yeah.
because I know that you, of course, coached girls
Yeah.
previously. And
Yeah.
that's actually something I was going to ask you about, too, is just you've gone back and forth with boys, girls, men's, women's. That's something that not a lot of coaches anywhere in the country or the world can say.
No, it's definitely different, and thankfully, as our goalers, we've had great parents who've, for lack of a better phrase, stayed out of the way and allowed us to coach, which, which is a huge help. Because when you have parents on your butt every day, it's kind of hard to coach. So, shout out to all the parents that helped us coach us. I think I told you this story at a basketball banquet this year. They asked me to coach lacrosse. I said, I have no idea about lacrosse. I love your son. I'll come to a game. And they got me out to my first lacrosse game. So, and I got messages after they go lacrosse game. Thank you for helping. Thank you for always supporting our son. And I know you know this as well. One of the parents actually handmade me a blanket for my wheelchair. So that kind of stuff makes you want to I don't want to say help them try more, but gives you the energy when you don't necessarily have it, because living with CP is not easy, but when you get those little boosts of energy, it kind of makes you, as you said, lean in a little more.
Right. And it speaks to, let's go back to it, for you, that watershed moment 2 years ago. God willing, you are entering your third season as an assistant coach back at your alma mater, Warren Hills, as the boys basketball team. But that was after leaving Rutgers University, which coincided with that epiphany of sorts that you had, which ties into exactly what you just outlined. And correct me if I'm wrong or speaking out of turn, Ant, but this realization that you have to be in it for the people. It can't just be about wins and losses and 5-star recruits.
Yeah, and that was always my thought process. 5-star recruits, make the NCAA tournament, and make every free throw, make every shot. What are you doing missing shots? And I'll tell you a funny story. In the locker room, the kids asked us this year, can we have music before the game? Yes, you can have music, but once we start going over the board, the music goes off. Okay, coach. So here we are, getting ready for a game, getting ready for every game, and this team is full on laughing to every song that comes on the radio, every song that comes on to the playlist. So here comes full on rap, and then we say, okay, kill the music, time to go over the board. And it was like you could have a pin drop. And for me, I would be like, turn that music off, we gotta get in the win. But it made me crack a smile every time that they perform out. And as soon as we said, okay, it's time to go over the board, you could have been done. It was absolutely amazing, especially at that age.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I said, you need the parents' help. But this group was one of the best I've ever had.
Right. And they've really kind of restored your faith in this has to be a people business. This can't
Yeah,
just be about wins and losses.
yeah, and And I don't know if you heard this. Ernie Johnson did an interview with Coach K for the Final Four. He said, I either want to be in the locker room full of joy after a win or a locker room filled with tears after our final loss.
Mm-hmm.
And after our final loss, we were all gassed and the locker room was filled with tears
Mm-hmm.
because we did all we had. And I would, here's the difference though. I stayed up scouting for this group because I didn't want it to end.
Mm-hmm.
I used to stay up scouting because all I wanted to do was win.
All right.
So there's that mindset change, and it really, like I started this off saying, putting it in perspective, and also helping you with Club 904 and talking up. I find it important that we have a conversation every week or every month about where you want to go with it.
Mm-hmm. And now, independent of me and you consulting on my various shows, that let's stick with that theme, the importance of conversation. We were just talking about it with regards to, some of the medical teams that you work with, given your fight with CP and some of the other conditions that you're currently, going through right now. And this idea of how hard is it for you or for me to pick up the phone and talk? How hard is it for two doctors who work in the same building to pick up the phone and talk? How hard is it and how rare is it, which is crazy to think, within college basketball programs, Big Ten, SEC, there are people who work in the same building, but they've never spoken to each other or never articulated the message to one another.
Here's another one of our rules. Every practice, we say, guys, we have 120 minutes to get there. Forget about the phones. Forget about the what's on social media. Let's work on talking on defense, telling each other where you have to be. So that that communication has diminished over the years with the advent of social media and virtual doctor's appointments. And I also said this: COVID made people lazy because now you work from home and you don't talk to people. And I find, like I said, I find it important to talk to you at least once a month. I usually text every week, but there's something about being able to talk to someone
Mm-hmm.
about how you're actually feeling. Because people can read text in so many different ways.
Right. And I know that's something you experience too, because I don't think anyone has a bigger email network than one Anthony Bonelli in terms of people he's corresponding with on the daily. But to your point, there is something different, whether it is friend to friend or if it is coach to player, boss to direct report, when you actually speak to someone as opposed to just hiding behind an email, which is something I know that you experienced too throughout your coaching career, where sometimes you felt like you were just being talked to through an email as opposed to someone picking up the phone and having a conversation.
Yeah, that happened to me a couple places. So, so,
Exactly.
yeah, and like I said, I've known this. I've known this stuff for 50. We grew up together, so it's like it was like all homework. I didn't know them as well as I know them now because we see each other 6 days a week now.
Right.
So it's
Exactly.
like, I mean, my boss, I think you remember this, my boss came over to watch the what was it? One of the rounds of 32 games, and we didn't talk about the games. We just had fun watching basketball.
Right.
And there's something to be said about that.
Yep.
Human to human communication.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So now, before I kind of give you the floor, Ann, and I let you take this any way you want with some of the leadership nuggets I know you're excited to share with our leadership students and the audience, I do want to go back to the watershed moment for you when the mindset shifted, and just reflecting upon that now, 2 years later. And I know it's something that, and you can be as open with this as you want. You don't have to, really speak on it if you want either. But I know it's something you and I really talked through, because it was something I was going through simultaneously in my profession. And this idea of being focused on the process itself and the people, as
Yeah,
opposed to so fixated by the actual outcome.
yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, I had two life-altering events happening in a matter of probably 4 months. One, I was told one of my body parts wasn't working, and then I lost a friend a few months later. I was like, and that's the point where I said, wow, these are just kids. And that life altering event about one of my body parts not working, in all honesty, is something I fight with every day, which I know you know. So that has kind of helped me put everything in perspective.
Exactly. Amen to that. And now we reflect 2, 3 years later. And while you had a great run at Rutgers, the beautiful part about it is you are impacting young lives every day at your alma mater. And you haven't closed the door on college. If a college listens to this podcast and they come calling, I know there's a couple agents who listen to this program from a time to time. So if they want to come calling, Anthony's open to opportunity, but he's focused on the players first, not just the wins and losses.
And here's the thing, here's the thing. I don't know if I said it to this year group, but I said it to last year group. Guys, this is probably the last institution with the transfer portal that you'll play for 4 years. So make the most of it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Heck, here in the state of Florida, they already got the transfer portal going on in the high school
Yeah,
level. So you're in middle school and you're telling them this is the last 3 years that you will be free of NIL and transfer portal being a
yeah.
part of your world. And so, as we get ready to kind of put a bow on this conversation, the formal conversation, and what other moments throughout your leadership journey do you think are important lessons to share with our students who will have a chance to listen to this program?
I mean, it's just a matter of finding your niche. I mean, I was just talking with my brother about my niece. She wanted to be a veterinarian at first. Then she realized how much school it would take. Now she wants to be an X-ray tech. Like, you have to find what you love. Find your passion project. And that's why I love helping you out on Club 904 and talking out, because it helps you think in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
It takes you off the court while still using your brain. So it doesn't have to be, my point in saying that is, it doesn't have to be one thing. It could be a whole mess of little stuff. I mean, I know you work at UNF, you work for Action Sports, you're getting ready to start full-time working at ESPN, so it doesn't have to be like one thing, it could be a whole bunch of little stuff.
Mm-hmm. And that is something I know you
Just
and I have
make
talked about
sure,
at length.
just make sure you love it.
Right.
Because if you don't love it, it's time to get out. Like quickly today. The day, the day, the day the red light goes on and you don't get noticed, it's time to get out.
And I think about that line a lot from one Mike Quick, Ant. I want you to know that. I do think about that a lot. And in the same vein, I also want to note that you have had your social media algorithms now populated by Jaguars information, despite the
Yeah.
fact that you are not a fan of the Jaguars, because you've been helping me with my various Jaguars coverage over the last year plus. And so, to that end, I think you make a great point of it's important to have multiple interests. It's important to not make the game the only sole focus in your life. When you are playing the game, when you are at practice, that 120 minutes, you've got to be locked in on the task at hand and be where your feet are. But if that's all your life is, then it's not a life truly fulfilled.
Exactly.
And that's why it's important to, despite how sucky they may be, follow those New York Mets and, stick it out with those Jacksonville Jaguars and everything else going on in the world of sports.
Well, now that we're transitioning to ESPN, might have to go a little more national.
We might have to talk a little more national. We're preparing for that. Yes, July. For those who may not know, yes, I will be returning officially. I've been under contract, but yes, I will be in a full-time capacity with ESPN and ESPN Radio starting July 7th. And so, yes, I'm preparing for lots of post-game baseball coverage in the month of July, and I may have to tap into you for some intel on that.
Absolutely. You know what I'm like.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and have this wonderful conversation that I know our students will appreciate. Any parting words before we head on out of here?
I'll leave you with this. Eric Church said before North Carolina took on Oklahoma, the joy of the moment overrides the pressure of the moment every time.
Simple as that. As simple as that. Find the good. Find the joy. That is something my friend Anthony Bonelli always does each and every day, and we hope you guys carry that lesson forward thanks to this episode of the UNF Leadership Podcast. Thanks for hopping in, brother. Appreciate you always, teammate.
Always. Good talking to you.
Thanks for listening to the UNF Leadership Podcast. For more episodes like this, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels. This has been a presentation of the Taylor Leadership Institute at the University of North Florida.